Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Welcome to Korea.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask questions today. What was your biggest change and insight that you experienced at 칸라이언즈 as it, reopened last year after COVID-19?
Well, we had a very difficult COVID-19, as you can imagine, being an event organizer. So if you remember, we had no festival in 2020 at all. In 2021, we managed to have the awards, so that was judged online, but no festival. So 3 years between the festivals back to 2022. And I think my biggest learning there was that people really enjoy coming together face to face. So you can try and build out digital offerings for people, and you can try and create meetings and content digitally, but there's nothing to compare with the reality of being together. So what we saw in 2022 was a very big return to previous numbers. In fact, we had more people come in 22 than we had in 2019. And I think that was luckily for us, it was my biggest learning that events have great longevity because human beings want to be together.
Wow. 칸라이언즈 has announced many changes this year. Can you talk about the most representative, changes this year?
Yes, one of the big things we've done is introduce a new category, a new lion. So what we try to do with these new categories is make sure that we are keeping ahead of where the industry is, or keeping pace with the industry. And we've had many requests for a gaming lion. And when you look at the data of the entries that come into the festival, the award entries, and when you look at the winners, gaming is actually a very big part of many of those case studies.
Right.
And as we develop over time, you can see that they're becoming more and more common. Gaming, of course, is a bigger business, a bigger industry than TV or movies or music.
Right.
It's the world's biggest entertainment industry. And so marketers are using that reality to ensure that they can tell their brand stories, both by partnering with games, but also being within the games themselves. And this is something that's developed over a number of years. But what we've seen at Cannes with the winners recently is a sophistication of the ideas within gaming that really made us think these ideas are now big enough to have their own category at Cannes. And so we make sure that we try to launch these categories when there is a big demand for it. Last year we launched the creative business-to-business lion, which again we'd been developing for many years. But of course business-to-business marketing is becoming very similar to B2C marketing. And so the winners of that showed us, again, there's a real demand for it. So I think our big change is the introduction of the gaming lion. We're very excited about it.
Amazing. It is amazing to see how this event is evolving itself. Maybe because it's the creativity event, right?
Yes, it's very interesting. We evolve because the industry evolves, and if we didn't evolve with the industry, we would die. Sometimes we lead the industry, so we introduced the mobile lions way back, maybe just really before mobile was quite ready. But what it did was it allowed the industry to experiment, try new things. Because when we launch a new category at Cannes, the industry wants to enter it. They want to do exciting things. So we kind of pushed mobile forward. With gaming, there is already many partnerships with marketers and gaming companies. And the creativity involved is really exciting. So we make sure we talk to the industry, we ask them what they want, we try to get our timing right, and then we launch into a category like this. And this is how we've changed the industry and the festival for many years.
those who want to submit their works are also interested in submitting data on carbon emissions and also in choosing team members. In the case of carbon emission data, it is necessary to calculate emissions in every process involved in the work, including brands, agencies, and production?
Ideally. So what we've asked to do is to see whether we can gather this data. So the most important thing to understand is this request is not compulsory.
Okay.
So people do not have to put the data in. When we talk to the industry and when we work with the industry wants to become more sustainable, and ultimately the industry wants to be net zero. Most countries have a plan for net zero. Most industries have a plan for net zero. So what we want to do is to try to help the industry to work out a way forward to net zero and to be truly sustainable. So what this means is that in the production, in the media you choose, and in the kind of idea, there are different types of carbon footprints. So what we're asking is, if you have this data, or even if you have some of this data, could you help us by including it? Because that will then give us an idea of where we're starting from and how difficult this data is to collect. We understand that it's very difficult data to collect,
Right.
and we understand if people can't do it, but it's an experiment.
Okay.
And if it doesn't work, then that's fine, we've tried. But it's really a way to try to help the industry with its requirement, its challenge, which is to become a sustainable industry across the world.
Regarding DEI, it is not easy to quantify the diversity of team members in Korea. Especially, Korea is unlike in Europe or United States, where race and nationality are more diverse. Does 칸라이언즈 take into account this kind of national characteristics?
Absolutely. So we completely understand, and it's not just Korea. It's China, it's Japan,
Right.
it's Thailand. It's most of Asia. Clearly, in Korea and Japan, and in China, most people are Korean, Japanese, and we completely understand that. Again, it's not compulsory. This information is very much. Again, it's to try to help the industry to work out where we stand. So in the case of Korea, I think it may be possible to say the gender, men and women, what was the mix of the people who made this ad? What's the mix of the people on the production team? Again, just to get some sense of diversity. But we absolutely understand that diversity means very, very different things all over the world. Africa is the same. It's very, very different. So again, it's just trying to help the industry really to work out how to measure these things as they become more and more important.
I see.
Yeah.
So it's a generative AI that writes ad copies and generates creative ideas. So if a Khan entry utilizes 챗GPT and wins an award, there may be some controversy. So how is 칸라이언즈 preparing for this kind of possibility?
Now, if you think about what 칸라이언즈 represents, 칸라이언즈 represents the magic of ideas and creativity. I think what 챗GPT may do is replace mundane advertising, right? So very simple, basic, mundane advertising and mundane journalism, right? However, it will not and cannot, by definition, it cannot replace creativity and human ingenuity. That doesn't mean that one day there may be a robot that can think and feel and be almost human, but 챗GPT cannot do that. So what we think is that the winners that come to Cannes and the things that are entered into Cannes, they are created by the magic of being human. the magic of understanding what it is to be human. And so we don't believe that 챗GPT will ever create anything that a jury member at Cannes would be interested in. However, we understand these things can develop very quickly.
Right.
And if you read the news about what Microsoft have done with the Bing search engine and the AI chat that's happened, they've now changed that algorithm massively because of what was happening. And so I think this is a very interesting area that will develop. So we're keeping very, very careful eye on it. But when you if you really think about what that machine does, that machine does not come up with ideas. And that's, I think, a very interesting point.
What do you think is the most important thing when preparing for the submission to 칸라이언즈?
There are 2 or 3 very, very important things. The first is to make sure that the submission is in the time frame.
Okay,
2 minutes long, no longer.
I see.
The second thing is to really step back and think about what problem are we solving and how did this idea solve that problem? Because quite often there are many award show submissions, they make an assumption. They assume too much. So they say, this is a program for Samsung phones, but they don't explain the problem they're trying to solve, and then they don't explain how the idea solved that problem. So that's the most important thing, to take a step back, because we're so close to the idea, we've worked on the idea, we know everything about it. You've got to imagine a room of jury members who have never seen it before, never seen it. So it's very important to tell the story really simply, clean, crisp. And then the final thing, particularly in Asia, is to explain the cultural context. So what is it about this idea within the Korean context that makes it interesting? Because you've got to remember, the jury is made up of people from every single kind of country. Many of them are Westerners. Many of them may never have visited Korea. And getting that cultural insight, that understanding of why this works, why it was a good idea, is very, very important. So I think overall it's about not assuming too much knowledge, and also understanding that the jury, they see thousands of films, thousands.
Right.
So yours has to be a bit special, a bit different. So I would never look at old case studies and copy them. Use the same music, use the same editing. But try and come up with something new and different and interesting.
I see.
And tell the story. Yeah.
Okay, last year, the participation of Asian countries such as China, Japan, and Korea in the 칸라이언즈 Festival was not that high. So what are the prospects for this year?
Well, I think partly it was because of COVID.
Right.
So we had nobody from China.
Nobody?
At all. No. And even from places like Singapore, if you remember, travel was still quite difficult.
Right.
From leaving Asia and coming back to Asia. So it was definitely reduced, by that. But there is a bigger issue, which we touched on earlier on, which is the number of lions won by Asia has been declining. And that's partly because there are fewer entries from Asia. And I think it's because also our systems have been too biased towards the West. So America is very, very dominant, wins many lions, has a lot of money to invest, and those ideas, they win lots of lions. And I think we've been guilty of not thinking of ways to engage the Asian community.
I see.
So we're going to do a number of different things. We're going to make sure there are more jury members from Asia generally.
Oh, great.
And also we're trying for the very first time ever, one of the presidents this year is from Dentsu. And he was concerned about his English. And so we've agreed to allow a translator in the room, which we've never done before. And the reason we've done it is because historically, the festival is in English. Everything is in English. The awards, everything. But that means that if you're on a jury, you have to be able to speak good English. But there is no correlation between speaking good English and being brilliant. There's no correlation between creativity and speaking good English. It's just, if you're lucky enough to be good at English, So I think it's important that we understand that there are many, many hugely talented people in Asia, in Japan, in Korea, in China, who maybe don't speak English. So how can we encourage them to do that? So that's why why we've allowed this translator. We'll test that, and why we want more jury members to explain that cultural difference and be part of this process.
Gaming companies and the data business have started to show great interest in 칸라이언즈 recently. Are there any programs that people in these fields can participate at Cannes this year?
Yes, I mean, it's interesting because if you look at the history of the festival, it began with advertising agencies,
Right.
communications agencies, and then the clients came, the marketers came, and then the platforms came.
Right.
Google, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok. And then the rest of the media came. And then music industry, film industry, TV, they started to come as well. And now what's happening is that consultancies are there, gaming companies are there, as you say, data companies are there. And the reason they're there is because the basic reason they're there is because marketers need all of those skills now. So in the old days, marketers, you need an advertising agency and a media agency, and that's it. Now you need to, how am I going to understand my data? How am I going to integrate into gaming? How am I going to integrate into music? How am I going to create digital? How am I going to make films? All of these different things. How am I going to, my user experience, both digital and physical experience, all these questions they need to be answered by marketers. And so at Cannes, there are many different programs for that. And what we do is we try to bring these businesses together to help each other, to teach each other, and to learn from each other. So the reason that the big, Activision have been at Cannes for a long time and will continue to be so, and there are many other gaming companies who come to Cannes. And I think this will continue because I think the industry is just expanding all the time, which is very good news for creativity.
I'd like to ask one question, that what would be the thing that could unite those people from those various fields? Because, when it first started, there's a kind of a unity that binds them together. They are, advertising people, creativity, but nowadays it's all from, various people from all kinds of, industries.
Yeah. Well, I think the same thing does still bind them. And if we take a step back, you think about the purpose of the festival. Why do we really exist? Is it to give awards to people? No. Is it to have speeches on the stage? No. These are all the product of what we do. If you come back to what we actually exist for, what we exist for is to help drive growth through creativity. That's why we exist. So, business growth, personal growth, organizational growth. And what we want to do is build a bridge between great creativity and the leaders who need to understand how to grow. And we believe that there is a distinct correlation between creativity and growth, and increasingly so do many organizations. So the reason they all come to Cannes is different. So the reason could be, I love looking at the work. I've entered the work. I've won a Lion. I like going to the speeches. I like meeting people. There could be lots of different reasons they're there, but the purpose that they're there is to understand more about how creativity drives growth. And that has never really changed, and I don't think it ever will change.
The proportion of marketers visiting Cannes is increasing. I think it's about 25%. What do you think marketers can get from 칸라이언즈, in short?
Well, they can be inspired by great work, and they can meet the people who create that work, and they can start to learn and understand what great work looks like. How to be creative. But also, they can be given the tools to explain, going back to my previous point, why what they do is important to the organization. So they need help to explain to a chief executive or a board why creativity and marketing will drive business growth. And so it can, when they're seeing the great work and they're meeting the people and they're understanding more about creativity, that allows them to go back for more investment and do great work. So again, that's why they come, and as you say, there are more and more from all over the world, and they seem to love it.
Is there any tips for Koreans who want to enjoy 칸라이언즈 Festival this year?
Yeah, my tips are really to do two things. The first is make sure you know where all the other Korean people are, because you might, spend some time.
Right.
Don't miss out on your friends, but also try and meet as many people as possible. I mean, the great thing about Cannes is everybody's in a good mood, right? Everybody's very happy to be there. It's sunny, it's full of creativity, the people are wonderful. And so my big advice is, yes, spend time with Korean people, but some people, they spend only their time with their own people, and this is a big mistake. So I would say to anybody from Korea, just go up to somebody, just say hello. Go up to somebody who looks like he might be Swedish. Where are you from? No, I'm from Sweden. What do you do? I work for a gaming company in Sweden. Really? I work for a gaming company in Seoul. And suddenly you start having a conversation. So this is the best way to really enjoy Cannes, because everybody wants to talk.
And this would be my last question. Can you talk about the direction and vision that the 칸라이언즈 is aiming for in the future?
Yes, we want to be the organization who is at the heart of enabling creativity to improve the world, to drive ideas, to drive growth, whether it's business growth or ideas that will help the world. And we want to do that not only through the festival, but through, we have a consulting business, we have digital subscription businesses, and we have many other tools to help us to do that. So our vision and our hope is that we can be part of many, many solutions, because we believe that creativity does provide solutions. This is why we work with the United Nations and why we work with many other global organizations to help to bring the creative community together so that we can improve the world and create growth.
Thank you, Mr. 필립토마스.
Thank you.
And thank you for your such great answers.
Thank you.
Do you have anything you'd like to talk to Korean audience?
Yeah, I would like to say there is a correlation between the number of entries that you send to Cannes and whether you win any Lions. The number of entries from Korea has decreased. I would encourage you to use the ideas that I said to explain your idea, explain the cultural context, and enter into Cannes, because if you do not enter, you cannot win. And when you win, it changes everything. It gives you so much confidence. It gets you more clients. It's a wonderful thing. So Korea has in the past won many, many, many Lions, and I'd like to see that happen again.
Right. Thank you again, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you again.
Thank you.